Hey everyone, and welcome to the next podcast with our team at Maltego. So today we've got a couple interesting guests. We've got Rowley and Mathieu Gaucheler, who's they're both part of our SME team. So let's do a quick hello to them. Liv, tell us about you. What's going on?
Hi, thank you, Brad. I'm Liv Rowley, and I am a subject matter expert here at Maltego. Most of my research focuses on stuff to do with cybercrime, so particularly cybercriminal underground and deep and dark web type stuff, but also looking into different fraud schemes and other cybercriminal interests such as ransomware and malware development in general.
That's cool. Mathieu, what about you? What keeps you up at night?
Well, I'm also an SME, such as Liv, so probably my job, and also I'm more focusing on everything related to malware analysis, threat hunting, all these kind of things. So maybe on the more technical side of things, that's mainly what I do at Maltego.
Cool. So, guys, the topic for today is what exactly brought you about this investigation and why sneaker bots?
I think Mathieu and I came to interest in this investigation from two different paths. So for me, it was born out of frustration. So I had been trying to renew my residency documents in Spain, and it's very hard to get an appointment to do so because they're all taken up by bots. So that kind of started getting me looking into bots and into this wider world with the sneaker bots and the ticket bots. But I know Mathieu has a different origin story.
Yeah, it's also out of frustration, not on topics so important such as getting a residency, but mainly just we were like maybe 1 year into the pandemic, not that much to lockdown, but pretty much 8 months deep, and I just wanted to buy just a proper gaming PC, right? So to do that, you need to get an actual GPU, so graphical card, graphical processing unit. And the problem is that at the time, NVIDIA had released some new models that were pretty nice, and I wanted to get some of them, but I couldn't because they were all getting scalped, meaning that people were buying them to resell them at a higher price for the huge markup, right? So maybe twice the price. Already a GPU that may have cost maybe $1,200 would be for sale at maybe $2,000, $3,000. So yeah, and unaffordable for most people, right? So yeah, that also born out of frustration.
Wow, okay, that is quite interesting. So basically, one, born out of frustration of not being able to get an appointment, and second, literally being scalped for proper prices for hardware. Okay. How long do you think these kind of scams have been running for, or will scalper bots? How long do you think they've been running for?
I'll let Mathieu take this.
All right. Yeah, well, that's a pretty difficult question to answer, but we have some reports going back to 1999, actually, but these were not focused on GPUs, of course, or not even on citas for the residency in Spain. No, it was more focused around tickets, actually. So people are going to use bots and go to websites such as Ticketmaster, for example, getting all of these and then selling them back on eBay or this kind of other things. They also had their own companies selling these kind of things, but then it started to shift, right? Because we've seen a crackdown on this kind of practices, and also other people started to realize that a lot of other things were very unique, very rare, very collectibles, let's say. So they tried to also make a buck out of that. So now you've got sneakers, you've got GPUs, you've got even Disney collectible, Pokemon cards, whichever thing is available, but not to everyone at a limited rate.
Cool. So there's obviously a lot of different things being covered by these bots, right? So you mentioned collectibles, retail items. Do you think retailers or any of these sellers have really been doing much to counter this sort of thing? Has there been any sort of activity?
They did put into place some countermeasures, let's say. But of course, every time you put in on, it's like very similar to malware. Actually, malware and antiviruses. Whenever antiviruses vendor come up with a new trick, you have malware coders and just adding something new to the arsenal to evade that kind of trick. So, and here the same came. Basically, they are checking the billing information, the shipping address, this kind of things, to avoid having someone shipping 50 pairs to their address. So they are going to check that, and they're also going to check the IP, of course. But all of this can be bypassed by using a proxy for the IP, by writing the address a little bit differently for the address checking. And for the billing information, you have something called VCC, virtual credit cards. So it's basically just going to be like a virtual credit cards with real credit card number that you're going to input on the retailer's website, and it's going to be attached to your real world credit card. So that completely bypasses the thing. And one last measure is actually the raffle system. So put into place by Nike, these kind of things. So the point of a bot, right, is that you're going to have something that is going to fill up all the forms very quickly, put in your credit card number very quickly, and validate and be the first to run the race, right? Because proper humans like you and me or Liv are never going to be able to complete the form in 0.3 seconds. So what Nike did was they actually just removed all of that and say, all right, everybody, 2 minutes to complete the form. And after that, we choose the lucky winners who will have the privilege to purchase the sneakers. So that made it kind of useless to have a bot, because 0.3 seconds or 2 minutes, the result is the same. You still have the same number of chance to be selected to buy the sneaker. But the answer of the botters then was to actually just buy a lot of accounts on the Nike website and just enter the raffles maybe 200, 500 times. So they have 200 or 500 times as much chances as more chances as you and me to buy actually the shoe.
Okay, those are interesting. But so is there a real way to really stop this kind of thing happening, or is there any other method that you think retailers could use that you've maybe discovered?
I don't know if Liv has an answer on this one, but I really don't. I really don't have the magic answer for that. Like we focused our time on this specific subject for a certain period of time. But I'm pretty sure that the people at Nike and in Nvidia now have been grinding and scratching their heads for the last year at least, specifically on the topic. And if they haven't found a solution, I don't think if it's going to be us with some months that's looking at it, it's going to find the divine answer.
I think it kind of goes with what Matt was saying before too about I think malware development is a very similar analog where it's this constant game of cat and mouse. Like you can come up with a new creative way of trying to stop this activity, and then somebody else is going to come up with a creative way of getting around your countermeasure. So I think we're just going to see this for a while of continuing to put new countermeasures into place and then watch the bots figure out a way around it.
Okay, that's okay. It sounds like some of these guys got to be intelligent at what they're doing as well. So, are there specific platforms or applications that they're using to get into this kind of thing?
Well, there is a huge community around these bots, depending on what kind of product they're buying. Like, for example, for collectibles and for sneakers, for GPUs as well, a little bit, but less. Mainly sneakers and collectibles, you have huge communities that are pretty well established on Twitter, Discord, and YouTube. So that's the main platform they use to communicate, share knowledge, and just do tutorials for each other. They also have, especially on Twitter, things called success accounts, which are basically just going to be everybody just flaunting their successes and saying, look, at successfully bought 50 pairs of shoes and I'm going to resell them for that price. And then the official account of the bot is going to retweet that because it's
I mean, this is, sorry, continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say another thing that we see. So Matt was talking more about where are these communities kind of interacting, but oftentimes what people are doing is somebody creates a bot and then many other people buy that bot from them. And in terms of where you find those bots, they're on their own websites. Like it looks very, they have nice graphics and it's very slick and they have customer support forums and stuff like that. So in terms of where you actually go to buy a bot, it's pretty out there in the open, and you can just Google it and find a nice little website.
Sounds fun, but apart from it sounding a bit crazy, and the fact that there's so much access to it, and if there's a community about it, there's I think you mentioned there's a lot of information on Twitter about this as well. So wouldn't this kind of be illegal to run these kind of operations?
Well, it's a good question, and it's a question we've spent a lot of time looking into, and it seems like it's not. It's definitely an illegal gray area is our takeaway. What these bots are doing is almost always violating terms of service agreements with the retailers, so that is a violation. But in terms of being like outright criminal activity, there don't actually seem to be a lot of laws against this. So ticket scalping, there's been movement to make tickets, the ticket bots and then the reselling of the tickets. There's been movement to make that illegal in the US, and in the EU, they've been talking about introducing some legislation around that. But that's just on the ticket bots. That's not even looking at other type of botting activity. So it seems like a lot of this can kind of happen in public, and yeah, they can have their own websites, they can have these Twitter accounts because it's not clearly criminal activity.
All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your research. Tell me about something crazy or something really interesting that you found while you were doing this research. Was there something that really stuck out like a sore thumb?
I would say one thing that was interesting and surprising to me is that there's a resale market for the bots themselves. So a lot of these bots are really exclusive. It's like you want to have a very limited number of these bots for sale, because if everyone has a bot, then the bots aren't useful against each other. So if you're a bot developer, you're only going to sell a limited amount. So they're often sold out. They're very exclusive to get. But what some people do is they'll buy a bot and then they'll resell that bot like at a higher price than they bought it for as well, to other people who want to use the bot. So it creates like this weird distortion that I hadn't really anticipated. And I think, Matt, you even mentioned finding like bots that are made to buy bots to resell.
Oh, I don't know if I actually found exactly this, but there are websites, however, specifically dedicated to bot brokerage, actually just trading and selling bots, and sometimes also renting them. There is a huge market within the bots themselves, which is kind of ironic, you know, how these people are making some commodities very expensive and very difficult to get. It's now coming directly onto them. This difficulty to source and use a specific product.
So buying, brokering, and renting. All right. Cracked bots, maybe. Are there different like cracked bots, or are they? So there's people that have bots that buy bots. There's people who are brokering them out as well. How deep does it actually go? So are these freely available at a certain point in the underground or in the dark web?
Yeah, so you mentioned the crack bots, and that is something that we found. As a dark web researcher, I was really interested in finding what type of connection you have between the dark web and this botting community. And it was interesting to see. So often I was finding cracked bots, like cracked sneaker bots that were available, but the cracked versions were for sale, but at a severely discounted price. So for instance, there was one vendor that I looked at, and they were selling a bundle of like 10 different sneaker bots for, I believe it was $350. And that's about the price, like the average price that we found for like one like normal bot, like buying it from the actual person that's selling it. So yeah, often like in summation, what you find is that with the cracked bots, typically you get a bundle of them being sold all together at a severely discounted price. And we saw that mostly on English language forums. So forums such as Cracked and Nold and Hack forums is where a lot of this activity was taking place.
Yeah, and to me that's actually crazy that people are actually using a cracked bot, because maybe I don't want to pay for any software. I don't want to pay for Photoshop, right? I'm just going to to download a cracked version of Photoshop and use it. But if you want to use a cracked bot, you actually have to enter your billing information, right? You have to enter your credit card number and shipping places. And I just don't understand how people just give that so easily to people that know crack malware as an activity, and like they aren't afraid to get their info stolen or anything. You see that? So yeah, I just wonder how that goes.
I guess that goes just in general with the trust system of like the cyber criminal underground, because at the end of the day, you know that everyone, they're on the cyber criminal underground, they are criminals, and there has to be a level of trust in order for sales to happen. So oftentimes they'll give out like free copies and stuff so people can evaluate it and say, okay, I trust it, or nothing weird happened with my credit card information. And that's how they build up a reputation. That being said, it probably is not the first avenue I would pursue if I was interested in obtaining a bot.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So there's a whole market out there. There's as we said, there's about sale platforms. There's a community. There's rentals. There's brokerages. And we're talking about trust and about eval periods as well. Is there a lot of knowledge that's required to run these kind of things, or to run these kind of applications or platforms or softwares? I've never seen any of them myself, to be very honest. So
yeah, you don't need technical knowledge, right? You don't need to be a software engineer to run one. To make one, maybe. To run one, you don't need so much knowledge. You do need, however, some to understanding graphs, some concepts, right? You do need to understand what kind of countermeasures are retailers implementing, so the one I was talking about before, and just basic tricks to bypass them, and then some other knowledge, because you can never operate just a bot, right? You need some other fluff that are going to help it run. It's like you cannot just have a car. You need to buy the oil, take it to the car place every now and then to get checked out. So bots are kind of the same. You need to get proxies. You need to get profiles, to buy profiles, like the Nike profiles, Nike accounts, if you want to enter in raffles. And then you need to join something. Usually people using a bot will join something called a cook group. So that's just slang from that place that just cooking, just buying sneakers. So these groups are going to give you info on the new collectibles, the new sneakers dropping. They're going to give you tips on how to manage your bot, and just how to make it more realistic so it doesn't get flagged. Yeah, all these kind of things. So you don't need to go to the university to get some knowledge on networking and what is an IP address and how does it work exactly, but you do need to have some basic knowledge on how to operate a bot. And this is why you can find so many tutorials on YouTube, actually, and why there is such a huge community ready to help each other, Discord server, Twitter accounts, you name it.
Yeah, I agree with what Mathieu was saying. I don't think there's a very high barrier to entry, but there is a bit of a curb to entry into this.
amazing. All right, so we know now there's a community. There's a lot of reach into actually getting these applications as well. But so let me bring it back to you guys and let me ask you, what did you use to sort of do this research, and how did you actually go about starting all this research?
Well, I mean, the main thing is that because there is such a huge community, you just type in bot, sneakers bot tutorial or something like this, and you're going to have a lot of people just very eager to help you, right? A lot of YouTube videos. There's even a subreddit about that, I believe. And then you have a lot of different outlets just talking about sneakers in general, because sneaker culture is pretty much a huge thing. And they're also talking about bots also, so they have maybe top 10 or maybe top 20 best bots, and they're going to give you the link so you can go investigate the website. Then from there you can follow their Twitter, see what the different Twitter accounts are talking about, who they are talking to, and all of that gives you some kind of a picture of what is the bot landscape looking right now. Of course, that's an approach that only works if you have kind of a community behind all of this. So this is why we didn't get as many information maybe on ticket scalping, right? The information we got from ticket scalping was from news article, basically.
Yeah, going off of that, so I think for this research, there's not really a centralized place where you can find bots. So it was a lot of like manual research and identifying different communities and what are people talking about. Though for the part of the research that I was focusing heavily on, this dark web component, I was able to use Maltego alongside with some forum data from one of the dark web vendors that we work with in order to help just identify who are the main people talking about sneaker bots in the dark web. What are the forums that they are talking on? Do these guys cross over? Have they been talking about, we were focusing on sneaker bots for a lot of the research. So I was saying, okay, are they talking about other type of bot activity as well? So for me, I was able to rely heavily on Maltego with forum data from a partner.
All right. So let me ask you a question. Do you think the sale of these bots or these applications, would that qualify as like cyber criminal activity, or the users of these applications?
It's a great question. As we said before, I think it's tricky. It feels criminal. I don't think there are laws against it, but I think the laws are often trying to catch up. It is a terms of service violation. Is it criminal activity? I'm not sure. Is it cyber criminal activity? What I can say is that with the guys reselling the cracked bots, that would be criminal activity because you've now broken someone's software and you're reselling it. But in terms of consumers or people even just creating the original bots, I'm not sure. Mathieu, I don't know if you maybe have a different take on that.
No, I think you're right. Like the things that we're not really lawyers, right? So we don't know how grave it is to break the term of services. There is, however, the first fines that came on to criminals, because now it's forbidden. This year, Liv was talking about the laws in the US prohibiting ticket scalping. Well, they were the first fines put on some companies in the state of New York, I believe, earlier this year. So, but this is like maybe 20 years after this kind of practices have started to emerge, right? So the laws, as Liv was saying, are slowly catching up. But before they make actually GPU scalping illegal, God knows how long this is going to take, or even if it's going to happen at all.
All right. Interesting. So maybe tell us about. So you've done this kind of research, and you found different venues where this is happening. So you have the retailers, you've got the exclusive lines of product. What were some of the odd things that you saw the bots actually targeting? Was there anything that was like sort of really strange?
Do you have an example? Or?
Well, I think you did some more looking into the targeting, but I remember you telling me about like Lilo and Stitch stuffed animals being targeted, which I was quite surprised because it just doesn't seem like the right demographic to me.
Yeah, exactly. I was very surprised. I'm looking actually at some of the images right now, and some of them are just outright specific caps, that Disney made for this movie with The Rock and Emily Blunt, I believe. And it's just it's like a jungle cruise, right? So they made basically a cap for the captain of the ship with two Mickey ears on it, and these things are getting started by scalpers. So I don't know. I mean, to me, this just goes to show that anything, as long as it's something that people want to collect and is not available in large quantities, can be targeted by scalper bots. So it's kind of funny, but also kind of terrifying.
So anything that there's a demand for, really, isn't it?
Yes, really. So yeah.
All right. Speaking about demographics and demand, has there been any specific activity in regions of the globe, or any specific country, or any odd platforms, or is it just very sort of niche thing that you don't really see too much of that activity in specific regions?
It was a little bit hard for us to quite establish where exactly this might. We have some ideas, but it's not really like a solid thing with data to back it up. Just like intuitions that we have from the research. And we also have to caveat this by this research was conducted in English. We did do some like quick searches to see if we could easily find activity in other language communities as well, but maybe we just weren't using the right keywords, or maybe it's not as common. So it was primarily being conducted in English. So one thing that we noticed is in the pricing of the bots, they were typically priced in dollars, which is not actually that unusual in general. Like a lot of criminal goods, if you want to consider these criminal or otherwise, are often priced in dollars because it's a common currency. But we did notice that some of the bots were being priced in euro as well, and pounds stood out to us. So that could indicate that these are people developing bots based in the UK, as well as generally somewhere in Europe. So that was kind of the best thing that we had to determine that. And then Matt, I think you also have some comments on the cook groups.
Yeah, I believe most of the cook groups are actually from America. Let me check the number that we have on this, but yeah, most of them are actually from America. Yeah, exactly, a huge proportion of them. Maybe if we have 200 cook groups, maybe just 3/4 of them are going to be from America. Then some in the UK, like maybe 20 in the UK, and the rest of it is going to be divided between some other countries in the Eurozone. But yeah, a huge part of them is actually in the US. Also something we took a look at with Maltego. Yes, that's just how it's happened. Some of these actually websites just list the company name selling the product, right? So you can actually go and get the original documents for these companies and who actually filled out the documents, and you can see some young Englishman, maybe 22 years old, starting his entrepreneurial debut. Of course, we didn't make it a rule because we only achieved that for so many companies, right? Maybe 2 or 3 that actually gave us the right information. So we couldn't qualify them on maybe 50 bots that we surveyed. It wasn't enough to paint a complete picture.
Nice. And I guess that's one way to find the origin of these traders as well, right? Or because of the resale rental market, is it still hard to sort of find a way to figure out where the origins of these are from in terms of who's propagating these kind of bots?
Oftentimes the bots like have names. So you can say, okay, maybe you're finding it on a site where people are reselling a bot, but they're typically going to advertise like the name of the bot that they're reselling, or even with the cracked bots, they will specifically say like, here are the 10 different bots that we're reselling in this package of cracked sneaker bots. So for that reason, I'm not sure if it gets terribly muddied up, the ownership information, because if you have the name, you can find the original website, and if the price is listed in pounds, that's an interesting thing to know. I don't know if you have any other comments on that, Matt.
No, definitely, but that's something if I forgot to highlight actually. Yeah, these bots are actually putting on some work to have like a specific identity, right? it's not just a command line program. You have an interface that is more or less well thought out, but at least understandable for basically everyone. You have some kind of graphical unity, let's say, graphical chart that is having some different logos that are all using the same little characters, kind of things. So no, they are all very identifiable in their own way, and that's kind of what they want, right? They want to put their name out there so people just go buy their bots or try to buy them again on some brokerage website. And they want to be able to be identifiable, because if I want to learn how to use a bot, I just want to be able to put name of the bot, tutorial on YouTube, and have some middle-aged Californian guy explaining me for 45 minutes how to use this exactly. So it's so part of it.
So you've got like a customer success team for when you've got the application.
Well, you gotta, yeah, you gotta make some marketing. You gotta, get the people coming and buy your bot, because these are not especially cheap. So you better convince your customers to get that buck out.
How expensive are they? I mean, there's been like a couple mentions. I think you said a couple $100 for a bundle package, but have you seen something that's amazingly expensive that does a whole range of utilities for them as well, or?
Yeah, so we did look into the pricing information, and it was a little hard to nail down just because there was quite wide ranges between what the bots were priced at, and unfortunately we didn't have the time to dig into why they were being priced so differently, if it's just, one is more exclusive and hot than the other versus maybe it has more functionality. But there's like an interesting like 2-tier pricing system that happens here. So the first purchase is like the initial investment. You buy the bot, and we found that the average price for that was around €300 for a bot, but it could range anywhere from like, I think, down to €100 all the way up to 850. It's like quite a wide range. So you buy your bot, but then you have to pay a monthly fee to maintain access to it, which is kind of similar to the price or the structures that we see in the underground for like malware as a service for stealers and stuff like that, where you have an initial fee where you buy the malware and then a monthly fee to essentially maintain access to it. So yeah, that monthly fee was around €30 on average. So that's what people are investing into this. So that's a lot of money to just get a few pairs of sneakers.
Nice. So you guys have had some sort of agenda when you got into this whole thing. Liv, you couldn't get your appointments. Matt, you couldn't get your GPUs at the right price. How did it feel after you actually dug into all of this research and got so far into finding out, okay, there's so many platforms, there's communities all about this. What was running through your mind after you did all of this research?
That's an interesting question. I think my takeaway from this research is that it feels like we're on an upward swing of this type of activity. We're seeing it diversifying in terms of targeting. We're seeing it becoming more like, even with the ticket bots, we just pulled like a quick Google Trends thing for like searches of ticket bots, which, obviously there are multiple things that could come up in that. But it like the interest in even ticket botting, which has been around for decades, has been going up in the past few years as well. So to me, it looks like this problem might get worse before it gets better, is my cynical takeaway from this.
I see you smiling there, Matt. What do you think?
No, nothing. I was just, I think Liv is more right, sorry, about that specific topic, unfortunately. No, but my reaction when I went and investigate this topic was, wow, the rabbit hole goes much deeper than I thought it would. Because I've heard before people using, bots to get sneakers or maybe streetwear clothing or maybe GPUs. But I didn't know the community was so huge. I didn't know it was they had so many moving parts. I really thought the retailers were years behind on this, right? And you just had to run 100 lines of Python script and boom, you would have everything you wanted. And no, it's actually a bit more complicated than that. So yeah, I was just very surprised. at how developed this game had become. Yeah, it's also, I mean, also of course the people buying Disney collectibles. I'm probably never going to get over that.
Interesting. So, I mean, given the whole, COVID pandemic and people looking at new businesses, one of the trends has actually been getting into retail. A lot of people are starting to manufacture their own lines of clothing, or they're looking at drop shipping of clothing. They're doing new and different entrepreneurial things to get out there, and a lot of that revolves around retail services or retail purchasing of clothing items and custom-made sneakers. Given that you've done all this experience, what would be a few words of advice or anything that you think that these new budding entrepreneurs need to be looking out for when they get into this kind of thing, or what they can do to sort of help themselves to actively prevent falling into the hands of these bots?
So you mean for the retailers to protect themselves against the bots then?
Yeah, how could they sort of help themselves or save themselves from being caught out by something like this?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you have a particular idea, Liv, but I don't know if this is going to be a problem for them anytime soon, because before there are actually people targeting you or your brand and wanting to resell your stuff. There needs to be hype, like there needs to be a lot of people being like, oh, I actually need these sneakers, or the Supreme brick, I absolutely need that. And yeah, before you achieve that, I don't know if you have a lot to worry about bots in general.
Yeah, I think the exclusivity is playing a major role in all this market. But I do think if you are a retailer, I think it's important just to be aware that this is like very prevalent right now. And I think if you just have that awareness, if you start to notice some weird activity on your site, you might be able to more quickly identify that as bot activity, and then take some of these preventative measures that Mathieu outlined before that some of the major retailers have with, looking at cookies and stuff like that. But yeah, I think just being aware of it, and then if it happens, acting on it is the best advice I can give.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on what Liv is saying and what we've been saying throughout the whole session, running a bot is not cheap, right? You need to buy proxies, the infrastructure to run it, and the bot itself. So even if you catch only half of the order that are made by bots and half of the bot owner targeting website go home empty-handed, that's already pretty massive loss for them. So you don't need to even catch everything. You can do some very, very simple things, as Liv was saying, what we outlined earlier, like just checking if the same IP address is not ordering 70 times the same thing. That should be something very easy to check.
Nice. I mean, I think that in itself is some pretty interesting advice or something to learn from, because a lot of the people who are doing this kind of new activity or new business entrepreneurship, as we call it, they may or may not be aware of some of the things you just said. So that is already pretty helpful. Guys, it's been interesting. I think I should thank you very much for answering all of my odd questions here today. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close?
Taking a look at my notes.
Yeah, I'm going to look at my notes as well if I ever missed anything.
We'll edit them. No, I think we hit a lot of the major points. Just again, I think this activity is going to keep growing, and I think another thing to look out for is, we mentioned before that this is very prevalent in English-speaking communities. For sure, this is going to start, like I saw on the news the other day, like here in Spain, that sneaker botting is starting to become an issue in Spain. I mentioned that I had issues getting documents or getting an appointment for my residency documents here in Spain. So I do think botting is going to start going over into other linguistic communities and impacting other countries in ways that maybe it hasn't as much in these past few years.
Yeah, no, I think Liv is right on that specific topic. I just wanted to do a quick talking very quickly about a subject I found quite funny when we were doing research is that, so, you know, before when bots were coming for tickets or for sneakers, for streetwear, you know, not everyone was taking interest in them, but then they came for GPUs, and actually some people were really pissed at them. So they developed their own bots that were free, open source and free for everyone to use. And yeah, there are some very nice GPU bots out there that were just, for example, fair game. And if you go to the GitHub repository, you have the tagline, if everyone is botting, then no one is botting. So it really is just, well, you know what, fuck you to the people that that bought maybe $400 of bots to get to try to make a quick butt of GPUs. They just wanted to, you know, make it a fair game, so people will be able to get their own GPUs and use them, not only to resell.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with the whole Bitcoin mining process as well, didn't it? With all the GPUs that are being bought up.
Oh, for a GPU thing, I mean, there is a lot of different. There were supply chain issues because I believe the Taiwanese manufacturer that was responsible for a lot of the chip production was actually having some kind of problems. Also, you have Bitcoin with the prices rising, making mining more worthwhile. And overall, just the pandemic, you know, everybody like me or you or Liv just stuck at home being like, well, what about, what if I just bought some PS5 or a new gaming PC, this kind of thing. Yeah, all of that put a strain on the market.
Amazing. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. And there you have it, folks. That was some very interesting findings from our very own Liv and Matt, part of the Maltego team here. If you have any questions or any comments, please please drop us a line. Thank you very much for your time, Liv, Matt, and see you on the flip.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.